Hi, my name is Matthew Benko, Manager of Veteran Services here at Montgomery County Community College, and I have the privilege and honor to be here today to host this year's September 11th Remembrance event.
My name is Russell Del Rosario, Director of Campus Safety for our West Campus in Pottstown. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 4 planes were hijacked. The loss of life and damage that these hijackings caused formed the largest terrorism attack on United States soil ever.
On this day, 19 years ago, America was changed forever. History books were written and families were never the same again. Nearly 3,000 innocent people lost their lives that day, and brave first responders sacrificed everything to make sure they saved American lives.
Today we honor those who lost their lives on September 11th. We gather to honor the first responders and the military who risked their lives that day and every day to help keep us safe and free.
We also gather to show those families affected that we will never forget and that their loved ones will always be remembered. By us coming together on this day, we show that American spirits will never be broken. We will always show hope, faith, and resilience.
At this time, we will lower our flag to half-mast. This will be followed by a collaboration video showing our commitment as a community and a college and a country to come together.
This represents the renewed sense of our resiliency and commitment to standing together as a nation. During this time, let us all observe a moment of silence.
And now, our college president, Dr. Bastecki-Perez.
Today, it's my honor to share with you reflections about 9/11, the deadliest terrorist attack on U.S. history. 19 years ago, we had nearly 3,000 Americans perish, with the loss of our World Trade Centers, the Pentagon devastation, as well as the flight in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. But it didn't change our resolve as a country, nor did we lose our freedom or our unity, the fabric of who we are as citizens. It's important that we continue to stand together and never forget those lives that were lost. It's equally important to honor our heroes, those public servants and everyday citizens who were courageous and sacrificed far beyond what we could imagine. Today and every day, I forever remember and show my gratitude for those individuals who perished and are heroes. I encourage you to do an act of kindness today in service to honor and remember.
Hi. I'm Sheriff Sean Kilkenny and a trustee of Montgomery County Community College. Thank you very much for inviting me to this virtual 9/11 ceremony at the Community College's Veterans Center. For the last several years, I've had the opportunity to attend in person and have had a very moving experience. Unfortunately, in these COVID times, we have to do this virtually, but I want to tell you a little bit about what I'm thinking today on 9/11. On 9/11, 2001, I was wearing a different uniform. I was Captain Sean Kilkenny, United States Army, and I was stationed in Tuzla, Bosnia. And I remember going to the DFAC, or the military dining hall, and seeing the planes go into the towers. I'm a New Yorker. I grew up on Long Island. Many of my friends worked in New York City, and many of my family members and colleagues worked in New York City. I was really thinking about them and was trying desperately to call my mother, a second grade teacher on Long Island, to see how she was doing. As time went on, I felt very, very helpless that day, being thousands of miles away serving our country in Bosnia, but being helpless to help my own hometown of New York. Last year, I was at the Pennsylvania Sheriff's Convention in Erie, Pennsylvania. And on the way back, I was thinking I had never had the opportunity to visit the Flight 93 National Memorial in Shanksville. On the way back from Erie to Montgomery County, I stopped by and spent a very moving afternoon. The thing that moved me the most was not the crash site itself, but was the exhibit. In the exhibit, there were phone calls recorded from that plane to people that were on that plane's loved ones, telling them about their hopes, how much they loved them, and their final last words. It was truly moving and haunting to hear that 20 years later, and thinking all of the anniversaries, birthdays, and special occasions missed. So people think of Flight 93 and Let's Roll, and the bravery of those passengers storming the cockpit, which was truly an act of patriotism. But what I remember most is those phone calls and the birthdays and anniversaries missed. So I want to thank everybody for coming to this ceremony. God bless you, God bless our county, and God bless America. Thank you.
I want to first thank the men and women of the armed forces for all that you are doing to allow us to keep our freedoms. When I think of 9/11, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is a terrible tragedy. I think about that day living in New York, commuting to work, and hearing about a commuter plane that crashed into the World Trade Center. Later, after being at work and learning that it was a terrorist attack, I think about all we did to support our students at the school in which I worked. We came together. We wanted to make sure that our students felt safe, even though we didn't know what was going on ourselves. We also needed to make sure that the team felt safe. There was a 21-year-old in my office who was actually a visiting student from Colombia. And she was really nervous. Her parents were very, very far away. And we had to support her as well. So thinking about that and thinking about the tragedies also makes me think about the resilience of the American people. We lost so many wonderful lives at 9/11. We also gained a lot of strength. We gained a lot of strength in coming together, in making sure we honor all of those who have fallen and who were lost during that time. We also honor the men and women who came together to help find, help relieve each other, help to build the country back and build us back better. We also honor the people who have actually survived during that time, the people who came through all of the dust and rubble and had to walk home, whether it was over a bridge or down a block or through a tunnel. I think about 9/11 and think about my own personal strength as well. During that time, it was very difficult. It also creates a lot of anxiety, but it also created a lot of strength. And that strength is to be able to help, to continue, to thrive, to make sure that the world knows that we will continue to persevere. Again, 9/11 is a horrible tragedy and one that I hope this country never sees again. But it was a time for all of us to come together. So to the men and women of the armed forces, thank you for all that you do, all that you did, all that you continue to do to allow us to keep our freedoms in this country.
To the Montgomery County Community College faculty, students, veterans, and guests, my name is Brad Heron. I was a student at Montco from 2008 to 2010, and I worked under George Panabaker in the Veterans Affairs Office from about 2009 to 2010. September 11th is something that has been seared into our conscience and marked, for a large group of us, the end of childhood and the beginning of adulthood. As a very immature 20-year-old at that time, I consider myself to be a part of that population. It is also my first known realization that people could simply hate someone for the sole reason that they disliked a certain way of life. It also marked the beginning of my journey into the U.S. Army as an infantryman with the 82nd Airborne Division and later as a recruiter. Fast forward from that day, a year and 3 months, and I find myself in Afghanistan in a place called Asadabad, deep within the valley of the Hindu Kush Mountains in the Kunar province, being bombarded by RPGs and mortar fire with the full weight of the families, lost souls, and first responders on my back, while engaging people that thought us to be evil incarnate. Now, as a man pushing 40 with significantly less hair, considerably more weight, and 2 young boys, what I take from September 11th now is honestly just how precious life really is. We are in the midst of a pandemic, and we feel incredibly isolated while simultaneously being made to feel that we should dislike someone because of political affiliations and overall differences between one another. Instead of seeing these differences, we should celebrate what we have in common. The last thing anyone has in their head when met with dire circumstances isn't what our differences are. It's camaraderie, friendships, love. Let us today celebrate the memories of those we lost on September 11th, the families they left behind, the military personnel that have deployed as a result of that day, and for the first responders that are currently battling disease from their time in the World Trade Center and Pentagon rubble. Finally, let's not waste our time tearing down what we dislike about each other. Let's celebrate our common goals and what makes us similar. It's the only way we got through it then, and it's the only way we can get through these times now. Thank you.
September 11th, 2001. During the early morning of September 11th, 2001, I had done what I always did. Poured a hot cup of coffee and went into my morning briefing at 7:30 a.m. I was on active duty for the U.S. Marine Corps, and at the time I was serving with 2nd Counterintelligence Company, located at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Our meeting was abruptly interrupted, and there it was. The first plane struck one of the Twin Towers in New York. As we watched in awe, never did we believe a second plane would hit the second tower. Then the third plane crashed into the Pentagon. And then there was Flight 93, the fourth plane, downed in Pennsylvania. This set the course for many emotions, reactions, and assumptions about the situation that was unfolding before our eyes. This, of course, also set the tone for what would lead to the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. Some Americans didn't understand the need to be in a foreign country with the potential to lose American troops. However, when Osama bin Laden assumed responsibility, it was a natural course of action to attack Afghanistan, where he was hiding. The war in Iraq was at times receiving more criticism due to the questionable connection to 9/11. However, there were many connections. The first we as Americans forget is that February 26, 1993, the Twin Towers were attacked by a bombing, which of course failed to bring the towers down. The bomber's passport was issued by Iraq and Saddam Hussein. The bomber, he was from Saudi Arabia, which was also bin Laden's home country. After these events, Iraq continued the relationship with Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. 9/11 isn't just the loss of Americans on our own soil, but for me it's also the friends and Marines I lost in the Iraq War. We believe in what we fought for. We believe in defending what we earned. I will quote you this: "We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother." That is quoted from the St. Crispin's Day speech. We will never forget. We will never let September 11th, 2001 be just another day. Thank you. Eric Bullen, Gunnery Sergeant, USMC, retired.
Good morning, everyone. Russell Del Rosario, Director of Campus Safety for our West Campus in Pottstown. I'd like to share some of my thoughts and memories from 9/11. I lived in New York City in 2001, and I was a New York City police officer. On that day, it was a Tuesday morning. It was bright and sunny. I remember being home at that time with my young son. My wife was at work during the day, and I worked the evening shifts. Around 9 a.m., my wife called me and said, "Turn on the news. You're not going to believe what's going on in Manhattan." Don't forget, this is 2001. This is before social media, Twitter, 24/7 news coverage. So I turned on the news and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Several things came to mind. One, this was not an accident. Two, this was going to end badly. And three, I needed to get in as soon as I could. I asked my wife to come home so I can go into work. I remember getting onto the highway late that morning. The highways had been closed except for first responders heading in to Manhattan. I remember crossing the Verrazano Bridge, and every day when I crossed it, looking over to the left and seeing Lower Manhattan and Twin Towers. Today, it was just a cloud of smoke. When I did get down to Ground Zero, I remember just crushed trucks, fire trucks, cars, buildings almost destroyed, and piles of rubble. I remember it looking like a disaster movie set. I'm sharing some photos that were taken 7 to 10 days later, after Ground Zero was no longer a rescue mission, but a recovery mission. I remember the smoke and the smell that time. If you've ever put out a campfire with water, it was similar to that, except this was a heavier type of smoke. This type of smoke contained concrete, cement, and destruction. It's a smell that I'll never forget. I lost a lot of friends that day, a lot of coworkers, a lot of people I knew, and a teammate. I'd like to share a quick story about that teammate I've never told before. In 2001, I still played football, and the center on our team was named Jason DeFazio. Jason was killed on 9/11. He worked in the Twin Towers in an office building. He was waiting for the call to become a firefighter. He had passed all the tests and was waiting to go into the fire academy. I'm sure if he was a firefighter that day, he would have been one of the first ones to run into those buildings. But I'm sure he was also one of the few that helped his fellow coworkers before those buildings came down that day. When we resumed playing football, I was asked to take his position at center. We won the game in his honor. I remember shaking hands and high-fiving and cheering with my teammates on the sidelines after the game. And then I fell to a knee, overcome with emotion. I guess all the days of sadness and grief that I had seen and felt just came to the surface. My wife and children were there with me, and I held them tight. And it was at that moment that I realized that if I had been there that morning in Lower Manhattan, like I had been many times before and many times after, that I may not have been there to hug them or be here today to speak to you. So I honor those first responders that lost their lives that day. I honor the law enforcement and military that continue to keep us safe and free. I honor them by living life to the fullest, by giving back to my community, and to never take what I have for granted. And I challenge all of you watching today, especially our Montco students, to do the same, to always reach for your goals and dreams, to give back to your community, and to never forget.
Hi, Matt Benko here. I just wanted to share with you the significance of the flag that's currently on the flagpole at the Veteran Resource Center. That flag in particular was one that flew with me on a number of missions when I was deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, and the Kuwait area. It flew with me on every single mission that I was on during my deployments there, and I've been on several deployments over the course of the last 10 years. So I had the opportunity to share it with Montgomery County Community College and the Veteran Resource Center. And as a loadmaster on a C-130 in the Air Force, I always carried that with me for a number of reasons. Because of the power it represented, and having that flag with me really meant something to myself and the crew. And I really feel it represents what we've been coming together for as a nation, to preserve our freedom, our securities, and the sacrifices that we all continue to make. Those in uniform, those who aren't, everybody across the board. It truly is an amazing opportunity to see a flag like this, and it's humbling, honestly, to be able to share this flag with you and to share some of these words of why it's important to me. So thank you again for being here, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
On behalf of the Veteran Resource Center here at Montgomery County Community College, thank you for taking the time to watch and being part of Montgomery County Community College's September 11th Remembrance event. More than ever, we need to come together and unite as a community and beyond. Please feel free to share this event, as it is available to watch 24/7 via the internet. Thank you.